Hello and welcome. This is the Onside Kick, an NFL podcast brought to you by Fox Sports with a little Australian twist. I'm your host, Chris Janssen. We have a massive show for you this week, complete with two special guests. They're going to go through all of the headlines and news heading in to Super Bowl 56. Firstly, with me today, as usual, and on the brink of Holy Grail, is Ted Smith. How are you feeling ahead of the big dance, Ted?
Happy to be in there. Nervous for Monday, mate.
It's going to be a big one. I think the nerves would be slightly bigger on your side, but as always, glowing and smiling away alongside me is the lovely Hugo McWilliam. How are you, Hughes?
I'm used to not being nervous in Super Bowl time. The Jets haven't been there in so long, so all good.
And if those two beautiful people were somehow not enough, today I am extremely excited to welcome a very special guest. He is arguably the voice of Australian sports commentary. You have heard him on everything from cricket to AFL to netball. So it should come as no shock ultimately to learn that he is also a massive NFL fan. Brenton Speed, it is an absolute pleasure to have you with us today. Thank you.
G'day, lads. Great to be here. No netball yet, but
Netball.
you know.
He spelled decathlon wrong. That's the problem. Yeah. Decathlon too. Yeah.
Now, much like an ongoing free agency saga, we had been trying to land you on this pod for a little while, and you had told us that if your beloved Cincinnati Bengals made the Super Bowl, you would come on. So naturally, I was a little disappointed to think that we wouldn't actually get the chance.
We'll never get Speedy on. Oh, well.
But lo and behold, after 34 years, the boys from Buckeye State heading back to the promised land. You must be pumped.
Absolutely. It was 89 Super Bowl, the 88 season. I was living in Perth for just 1 year, and I went over to my parents' friend's place, Lane Long, and he's an American. So he had the Super Bowl on, and that's when I fell in love with the Cincinnati Bengals. So I'm watching the preview, and they're the underdogs, and they got a quarterback called Boomer Esiason. So you can't help but root for the underdog. The colours are similar to Hawthorn, who I support in the AFL. So I jumped on the Cincinnati Bengals, thought I'd be in for a great ride. They nearly won that Super Bowl, of course, and then through the years, of course, didn't look like getting back there. The Andy Dalton years, tuning in to watch those games when it promised so much and then never quite delivered. But watching Joe Burrow come onto the scene, and when I realised they were going to get him #1 draft pick, I thought, hello, things might turn around, and sure enough, they have.
And just a year later to also land someone like Jamar Chase, who you pipped my Miami Dolphins for. What an electric weapon to have partnered with him as well.
Absolutely. And to come for that college combination. I mean, LSU, not really considered to be national championship contenders most years in the college setup, but suddenly they get Burrow and Chase, and the combination they had was, the telepathy was all there. So to get Chase a year after, and Burrow showed so much promise, and now you've got that combination. And for big plays throughout these playoffs, it's been those two combining so beautifully. So hopefully they stick around for a long time and set up the franchise for regular Super Bowl appearances.
Yeah, there's the formula for success. Sorry, CJ, but the fact that they've got Chase, but if he gets cancelled out, they've got Higgins and Tyler Boyd. They're probably the best 2-3 wide receivers in the NFL, just about. They're in that chat. The ingredients are there. If the Bengals lose, what do you think the main fault will be with that team?
Well, I think Aaron Donald, you're sitting there, you've got them side by side, don't you? Burrow v. Aaron Donald on the graphic. I mean, it comes down to that because, the escape act that he produced against the Chiefs when he was getting hunted down at a key moment in that game and somehow stepped out of the tackle. He's not stepping out of an Aaron Donald tackle at a key moment. Donald will smash him. So they've got to stand up, the offensive line, and protect Burrow and let him find those targets. Some of the biggest plays have been when he's got it to Chase in the flat and let him make his moves and use that acceleration. So, McVay's ready. He'll be ready for everything. He'll have a defence set up to try and stop Burrow and Chase. And I think Azama is key to have him ready as well. He's coming up with big third down plays for the Bengals, and hopefully he'll be right.
Yeah, so is he definitely back?
I read a little bit of talk that he's very confident of playing in that game. So hopefully his knee's fine, because then you've got so many options for Burrow when he's under pressure from the Rams defence. But how do you sum it up? Donald's not only the one fear that the Bengals should have.
Yeah, well, Von Miller, Ramsey, it's a stacked defence. It's an all-star defence. Those three players are straight up into the Hall of Fame. Ramsey, Donald, Von Miller. There's the problem. But, Joe Burrow, he's just answered every single call. No one's picked him for these playoffs. He's the answer. It's like, well, if the Rams don't win, it's because Burrow burrowed, essentially. Like, you look at all the matchups across the field, defense, offense, everywhere but QB. And Matt Stafford, he is a great QB. But Joe Burrow is showing something. Yes, other second-year quarterbacks have made the Super Bowl, but not like this.
Yeah.
Russell Wilson did it with a good team unit. The first iteration of Tom Brady to make a Super Bowl did it with a team unit. Roethlisberger. The Bengals have made it only because of Burrow. And I don't know if we can say that about the other QBs that have made the Super Bowl in their second year. Yeah. So, mate, it could go any direction, this Super Bowl. It's going to be crazy.
And the positivity from the Bengals' point of view, I reckon, is that Matt Stafford's history is that he can throw a big pick at an untimely moment. From the Lions days, you watch the games that he would play with Detroit and you think, well, Stafford's got this under control. The only thing that can stuff them up is if he throws a pick, and sure enough, he does. He's thrown a few for you guys.
The most pick sixes this year, but you're absolutely right. When I feel more comfortable with Stafford when we're down by 7 in the fourth, as opposed to up by 14 in the third. Seriously, that's when you get a bit tight.
He's been pretty flawless in the playoffs, though. So that's the only kind of positive sign from what you guys were saying before. What is exciting, though, and I want to know your guys taking this as well, that if Burrow does turn up, it's going to make a very high-scoring Super Bowl. Who do you think wins a shootout? Is it going to be the Bengals, all their receiving talent, or is it going to be this stacked Rams side?
I fancy the Bengals to win a shootout. I mean, if Burrow gets to pick his targets and pick them off at will, I can see the Bengals winning a shootout. The teams they've taken down this year, the Browns, the Chiefs a couple of times. I mean, you're taking down Mahomes twice at the back end of the season. That's a pretty good, recipe for taking on the Rams in a shootout.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I'd be super nervous if the Bengals had the ball, the last possession of the game. And look at these playoffs. Fair to say the best playoffs in my recent memory. It's been crazy. So I'm super disappointed if the Super Bowl doesn't carry on that theme. But yeah, I mean, given the cattle that we've got out there, Stafford likes comebacks. Joe Burrow likes comebacks. Even if there's a blowout by halftime, it could still be game on. And I think that is the most likely way we'll see a shootout. One of these teams getting ahead and the other one just fighting back.
Yeah, this year has thrown up such a myriad of results and news headlines, some of them good, some of them bad, obviously. But ultimately, the Cincinnati Bengals and the Los Angeles Rams scrambled their way through this mess to make it all the way to the very top of the mountain. I'll start with you, Speedy, because I know Ted will go on a very impassioned Rams speech. What do the Bengals need to do correct to be able to plant their flag right at the peak of that mountain?
I think you need to get Chase to have the big plays. I mean, the Rams, you saw in the last playoff game, he was sort of kept a little quiet. They double-teamed him. The Rams will do the same. So can we get Chase to come up with the big plays? I think we need those if it develops into the shootout situations. So I think it's Burrow and Chase and the offensive line protecting Burrow because he missed a lot of last season with the knee injury, and that was because the offensive line didn't protect him and he tried a little too much to stay upright. And he is doing that, and he's going to do that more in the big game. You'd imagine the Super Bowl's on the line. So, you've got to take when the sack is coming, I think you've got to take it if you Burrow and be careful. You don't want an injury in this game in the first quarter and Burrow goes down clutching a knee. Yep. That's my fear as a Bengals fan. We've got to get through that.
I mean, looking at that Titans game, like it's easy to throw shade at the stats, talking about the 9 sacks that the Titans got on Burrow. But my takeaway was like you look at the bad interceptions that Tannehill threw. He held the ball and just copped hits off big dudes, and it's like that's why his teammates love him. Like he's willing to get hit for his boys, and man, I've never been in this position where like it's a Super Bowl. I want the Rams to win, and still being like, man, I really like Joe Burrow.
Well, yeah, they're both quarterbacks that are not afraid to stand in the pocket and take those big hits. I think there's probably slightly better protection around Matthew Stafford in that department. Ted, we have quite an interesting dynamic here. You're sitting next to the big Bengals fan. Having heard that, what do you think the Rams can do to spoil this swagger party?
When you're talking about defensive units in the Super Bowl, you're going to talk about the Rams, but the Bengals have been applying pressure on quarterbacks as well, which could be a catch-22. Matt Stafford is the best in the NFL against the blitz this season. Joe Burrow ain't bad either. We're talking about those chase crossing routes that end up into touchdowns. So, yeah, look, how well the defense plays against Matt Stafford and the reactions to the first 2 quarters. You look at Sean McVay's, he's only ever lost one game when leading at halftime of a match. So obviously the first half is going to be huge for this. But that says to me, like, Sean McVay is elite when it comes to making adjustments and knowing what he has to do to keep his team on the prowl. I'm hesitating because we blew so many leads this year, as I say it out loud. But we did keep winning. As I speak, I'm just making myself more nervous about this Super Bowl.
Against McVay, I think he opens the door and makes some puzzling decisions.
Those challenges in the NFC Championship game. And that's been, for someone that's touted as a bit of a coaching savant, the thing he's worst at is actually game time decisions. Yeah. He makes some questionable ones. He does not care about timeouts. He will blow them early in the second half. And man, if we go down, I don't want it to be a result of Sean McVay. Going back to our last Super Bowl, that was a Jared Goff issue. That's why we got Matt Stafford. If we can get it done, it's going to be because Sean McVay is Zach Taylor's big brother.
Yeah, and the dynamic between those two is fascinating, and I'm happy we've landed with Zach Taylor. I mean, you watch him get interviewed by Chris Collinsworth. There's a great podcast going around on YouTube you can watch, and everything he says, he's so calm, and you just know you'd want to play for that guy. And when you see those in-room after-match presentations when he's handing over the ball to certain players, you can see the buy-in. And you saw that when they were winning, they were 1-0, 2-0, or whatever they were at the start of the season. You could tell that there was something special happening. And then I think they might have taken, did they take on the Jets and they were up by 14?
Lost.
I remember I woke up, I looked at the score and I go, the Bengals, they're home. They'll be 5-2 or 6-2, I think they were going to go to. And then I checked back later on and they'd lost the game. And I go, that is so Bengals. We've gone back to the Dalton years. We're going to miss the playoffs. The negativity comes in again. And lo and behold, we wind up in the Super Bowl.
Yeah. We did go from the 2 oldest coaches in the Super Bowl last year to this year to the 2 youngest coaches, so that's a little storyline in itself. I've let you two have a little go. Hugo, for the neutral fans, this seems like a choice, I'm going to say, between heart and head. What do you think will be the big storyline out of this game? What are you most looking forward to?
That sums it up pretty perfectly. I think everyone is picking the Rams. I think everyone wants the Bengals to win. If the Bengals win, it'll probably be one of the greatest Super Bowl comebacks of our lifetime. It's not comebacks, Super Bowl triumphs of our lifetime. Just such an underdog team. No one would have picked the Bengals to win the Super Bowl this year. No one would pick this second-year quarterback, Joe Burrow. Jamar Chase, who was dropping the ball all preseason, everyone said he couldn't catch the ball in the NFL because the ball was shaped differently or whatever.
They should have picked Sewell. They should have picked Sewell.
Yeah. I said that as well. They should have picked Sewell, and I've definitely feeling wrong. It's actually interesting watching that draft back because all the commentators said the same thing. But yeah, it's the people's champs this time around. And it's heartening for all the teams who have been so terrible for so long that there is just that one player, there's 1 or 2 players who can come and change the fortunes of a team. And it must be fun for a fan just to know there's this new swagger coming into Cincinnati with Evan McPherson, always mouthing off after he makes a kick. And
Before he makes the
kick as well. And Joe Burrow saying he's wearing real diamonds because he makes too much money not to. So what's that like as well? To have just
Do you think he checked that comment? I think he checked it a little later. About 10 seconds later, he's going, did I say that? I'm not sure I wanted to say that one. I think if you could take one comment back from the press conference, he'd take that one back. But the kicker. And they drafted a kicker.
Yeah.
And they copped flack for that. Who drafted a kicker? And he's winning games for us with clutch kicks.
Not the last round either. I think it was
5th round.
Yeah. That's a big pick for a kicker.
Little tangent here. Given that Joe Burrow changing the fortunes of not just the Bengals, the city of Cincinnati. Yeah. It's buzzing.
And the state of Ohio.
It's a result of the draft.
Yeah.
Given you've been an NFL fan for so long, you're just like, NRL. What are you doing?
Yeah.
There's so much evidence of how a draft can just do a complete 180 on the fortunes of $1 million franchise. I just don't get it.
And the one code that does follow it is AFL. And they've got the draft, of course, and it provides, plenty of mileage for TV columns and
Exactly.
Well, one team who doesn't have to worry about any drafts for the next couple of years is the Los Angeles Rams. Two slightly different tactics between the two, but that is also born out of one not being very successful in the last 5 years and one having great success. As you mentioned a bit, 4 years ago, they were back there. 3 years ago, they were back there facing off against Tom Brady and the Patriots. What went wrong that time besides Jared Goff, and what can they fix this time to make sure it doesn't happen again? Because it was a little bit of, in my opinion, a bit of like a Sean McVay over-prepared meltdown.
Yeah. I mean, you're talking about a guy that's 33 or 34 coaching against Bill Belichick in one of the world's biggest sporting events. So I'll give him a pass for yips with that first one. I'm pretty sure they only went down 13-3. But there wasn't just the Goff play. Obviously, he had a wide open, I think it was Cook, down the centre of the field, but he threw such a duck that another cornerback got to it. There was some big misplays, but even though the score was close, it kind of looked early that the Rams weren't in it. So you'd be surprised for someone that's as smart as Sean McVay is not to take heaps away from that week. And that could be one of the biggest stepping stones for the Bengals as well. The fact that the Rams, none of this is new for the majority of that squad. Yep. Even the guys they brought in.
Von Miller, Super Bowl MVP.
Exactly. Ramsey was in the AFC Championship with the Jags a couple of years ago. Like not just good players with pedigree as well.
Yeah.
And, you know, I think on that, the fact, I know you're joking, mate, the fact the Rams don't have any draft picks, but the proof's in the Super Bowl pudding.
Yeah.
You don't need them. It's just like, I can't believe they don't have 2 first-round picks. It's like, okay, those 2 first-round picks won't be better than Jalen Ramsey. Yeah. So what are we talking about?
Well, it's proof you can make it work either way, through the draft or through trades.
You get Burrow, yeah.
So, you get Burrow.
Yeah.
But, we've seen one other Ohio team get the first overall pick and not take Burrow, take Baker Mayfield, so it can happen either way.
But
and they were saying to Burrow, weren't they, that he'd want to move on, don't want to play for the Bengals. He might go there for 1 or 2 years and then he'd be looking to move on. But now he's set it up. It's such a fairy tale story already in season 2 that you could see him staying his whole career there.
The whole time, I think they're still haunted. They were haunted by the Carson Palmer first overall pick, and then
Palmer was great.
It was great for them.
It wasn't great enough to change the Bengals.
Yeah. I think there were a lot of other problems with that as well. But sorry.
When Peyton Manning left the NFL, David Letterman gave a speech in Indianapolis. Obviously, went from the Broncos back to Indianapolis for this speech, presentation, whatnot. Letterman said, "I want to thank you for changing the skyline of my city." That's what we're talking about with Joe Burrow.
Yeah.
Oh, that's how big the NFL is over there. That's how big this game is. You're talking about changing the vibe of millions of people. Pretty good pick. Joe Burrow, pretty good pick.
And pretty good pick to have aligned yourself with the Bengals. It paid dividends just
Eventually.
a couple of decades later.
Worked hard, yeah.
I'm another question for you both. It does feel a little bit like a panel at this point, but it's so nice. Who could have guessed that we would have 2 people in the Super Bowl to be able to rack their brains?
Jets Miami next year. can't happen. AFC Championship.
We can probably barely both make it to the playoffs, but I'm going to say, even though one team is the underdog and one team has a little bit more expectation, I would say, to go ahead, who do you think would actually be more nervous? Joe Burrow gives this ice-cool persona, but he is a second-year quarterback. I'm sure a little bit of it is talk. He can't really have cojones that steel-like already. Who do we think? Is Sean McVay and Aaron Donald starting to think, geez, maybe not too many more chances? Where do we see this falling? Will there be nerves about, or is it just professionalism?
Are there nerves in the NFL? There's such swagger that goes around, and this is what they've dreamt of, being there on Super Bowl day, and they believe they'd be there. Like Joe Burrow just believes, I'm the best guy going around. I'm the new Brady. I'm going to be there year after year after year. You can just sense that in the swagger that he's got. So I don't think there'll be any nerves for Burrow, apart from that crumpling of the offensive line when Donald just works his way through and comes hunting him down.
Yeah, maybe nerves over a crumpling knee as well.
Speedy, can I ask you, someone who's been around sport for a long time, you've been to a lot of big games, you've called a lot of big games. We talked about the Rams getting overawed a couple of seasons ago. When you're at the ground at a big game, how quickly can you sense that? Like, can you sense it in the warm-up? Can you sense it when you're there? Like, will the fans there, will the players there almost know straight away if this occasion's too big for them?
Well, sometimes it is, I reckon, the crowd sentiment that can get to certain athletes. Like when you hear a groan and it just rams at home, like an 80,000 groan on a big moment, and that can, fester itself and really weigh a player down, I reckon. But I think it's all up to the players to set the tone. I remember Peyton Manning when the snap went over his head and there's a safety to start the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
And imagine the negative thoughts that come in there. So, NFL is just a unique sport. I think a wonderful televisual sport as well, and we just can't wait for this game.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's designed for comebacks too. But back to that question on pressure, it's easy to look at the event and be like, surely they'd be daunted by this. But quarterback is a tough position designed for people that can handle pressure. They have been succeeding at every single level, besides the 11 years Stafford was at the Lions. But Stafford they're both first overall picks, only the second time that's ever happened, which is crazy considering how much attention is put on first overall picks at the quarterback
and then
position.
Quarterbacks.
And Stafford, like SEC as well, like Georgia, you just have to look at his 2 playoff games, like Tom in Tampa, bit of pressure there. And he had laser focus and he played some of the best football he's played for the Rams.
Terminator eyes.
So like, will pressure get to some players? I'll be worried about the punt receiver. You know what I mean? Like that's pressure.
Yeah.
Or if you're open and there's a ball coming, but when it comes to Stafford and Burrow, I'd say that they've got some. They're pretty cool, dude.
Yeah.
Pretty cool.
All right, boys. Let's get into some tips. Maybe some thoughts on. I'm guessing that one will be a little bit self-explanatory from this side. So Hugo, I might jump straight over to you.
With
scores. Who are you
Scores.
picking to win? Give me some scores, and also if you can give me an idea of who you think might jump out and take an MVP.
I think like we said before, my head is saying the Rams will win, and it'll be something like 24-10. And if that's the case, and Joe Burrow's held in check, Aaron Donald will be MVP. But my heart, and this is the pick I'm going to make, is the Bengals are going to win 44-41. It's going to be an amazing high-scoring Super Bowl. Jamar Chase will catch 3 touchdowns. T. Higgins will catch 2. and we'll go from there. Joe Burrow will be Super Bowl MVP with 500 yards. The first person to do it since Tom Brady.
Well, that's quite a bunch of odds. If anyone would like to load them into one of the betting apps, I think you'd get a good juicy payout for that one. What about you, Mr. Speed? What do you think?
We're in LA. I like that from Hugo. It's, Showtime kind of stuff. I'll take 34-21. Bengals get home. Offensive line somehow holds up. They come up with a scheme. Zach Taylor's worked out how to. I love the 2-week build-up.
Yeah.
You see different things happen, don't you? You see teams change their strategy a little, come up with solutions. So look forward to seeing the way the Bengals go about it. But, it's Burrow to Chase. And then when Stafford's pushing to try and, get them back on level terms at a key moment, it's Eli Apple who comes up with another key defensive play and an interception and a pick 6.
One of the youngest journeymen in NFL history. I'm weirdly offended by your score there, 14 points. I don't know how I feel about that. I'm going to go little niche one. Rams 24-21, with Von Miller becoming the first defensive player to win 2 Super Bowl MVPs.
Wow, that'd be big.
They're going to triple team Donald.
I think for me personally, this is the way that Cincinnati will win is in a war of attrition, a really close back and forth sort of game. I think if it goes the other way and the Rams win, I think they get it done easily. I'm sorry to say that. I think that's what my heart is pulling for. I think the Rams get their revenge, and I think McVay pulls a bit of an ambush, to quote Ted last week. I think the Rams will get it done 33-10.
Okay.
Wow.
Nice. One question, boys. If McVay wins this, where does that place him in terms of the great coaches that we've come, obviously a long way to go, but 2 Super Bowls and hypothetically a win, no, they're not going to win. It's all my fault. Let's say he wins.
Get back to us in 20 years.
At like 30,
Yeah.
Oh God! At
Don't you think?
37,
Yeah.
that's quite a resume for someone who's a few years away from 40.
I think he's on the path, right? I think I agree with your sentiment as well. I think there's a chance, that he's got the resume building now. At the end of the day, if he retires at 40, then it looks nice. But if he spends the rest of his career still playing and never gets back to the top of that mountain, as we were talking about, then then it'll be a little bit more disappointing.
It has opened the doors for other franchises, though, to look at 32 to 33-year-old live wires with the great brains.
Yeah.
Interesting thing about Burrow's brain that I heard the other day is the fact that, he doesn't sit there and look at diagrams all days on the plays. He just looks at it once on the training field or whatever, and then he just files it away. So it's all in there.
Wow.
Yeah.
He's got a photograph.
That's Manning-esque.
Yeah.
Like when it comes to quarterbacking the NFL, more so than other sports, aptitude and intelligence is a massive ingredient to be successful. Like, these guys are professional operators. Most of them would have succeeded at anything they wanted to do.
Yeah.
Smart dudes who have excellent work ethics.
Awesome. I think that's pretty good spot to leave the Super Bowl preview. We've got a lot of good points in there. I want to jump a bit into a little bit of a deeper dive into a look at you, Brenton. We want to talk a bit about Cincinnati. You were on holiday, and I find it hard to believe that you could have just been on a holiday in Cincinnati and fallen in love with the city and the team. So I want a bit more details about how you came to fall in love with the NFL.
Yeah, it was that 89 Super Bowl at the end of the 88 season, and watching that game. And I think there'd been some American football teams that had come out to Australia. I remember my parents went off and watched a game, might have been at the MCG or something, and it was just an exhibition game at the end of a season. They sent out a couple of teams, and so that was my first sort of introduction to this American football, and they wear the pads and they got the helmets and all. But that Super Bowl was the one that I watched. So the Bengals were the underdogs against Joe Montana and the 49ers. That's why it would have been nice if the 49ers had held on to that lead against the Rams last week and set up a rematch of that 89 Super Bowl all these years on. So I whoever I pick as my team, I stick with my team.
Yep.
I don't switch teams. It would have been nice to follow the Brady years at the Patriots and all that, like so many Aussie NFL fans. But I've stuck with the Bengals. You switch off when the team's having, 2-win seasons and 1-win seasons and whatever. But
trust me, I know.
But then, as I said, Dalton gave us a few little sneaky moments when you thought maybe we might be able to do something, but then he'd come up with just plays that you just, you couldn't believe. And now the belief is there. And I was lucky enough to, I was in New York actually with mates, and they were pondering, they said, let's go to the Jets game on Sunday. And I had a look and I saw the Bengals were playing in Green Bay. And I said, well, I'm going to fly to Green Bay and watch my Bengals play for the first time live. So I rock up at that game, and the Bengals jumped out to a 2-touchdown lead. Rodgers was all over the shop. And I got this great photo of the Bengals scoring a touchdown. There was one lone Bengals fan in front of me, Tyler Eifert fan, standing up and just saluting the touchdown as they take the big lead. So I went down to him in halftime and said, mate, I got the shot. What's his cell number, man? I sent him that photo, and he's probably got it on a screensaver somewhere. And then third quarter, they actually get on the loud hailer there, and they said, congratulations, everybody. You are at the warmest game ever at Lambeau Field. It was 90-odd degrees Fahrenheit, about 37 degrees Celsius. It was absolutely stinking that day. And the Bengals got rolled. I think Rodgers comes back and wins it in overtime, which was just so Bengals.
So perfect.
So I got a couple of mates. There's another photo there where the couple of Bengals guys were in the same row as me. So, they're trying to work out why these Aussie guys supporting the Bengals, and told them the same kind of yarns, and we're all embracing because the Bengals are up and about. And then suddenly Rodgers wins in overtime. I turn around, they're gone. Never saw them again. But it's great to go to Green Bay. You've been there as well.
I've been to Green Bay as well. I wasn't there for the warmest hour. I was there for a freezing game. It was like -1, -2, but just such an incredible experience. You had another great story about meeting someone in Australia who was also at this game.
Well, there's another photo there of the Brett Favre commemorative rifle, and that was the first photograph in my album that I've got on my phone. Is that photo of that moment? I thought, how American is this that they've got a commemorative rifle of the legendary quarterback just sitting there on display, and take it home, like just buy it, put it in the case, and away you go. And then I was playing golf just randomly with this guy the other day at my local golf club, and we started talking NFL, because I'm getting Bengals into the conversation. And he goes, I'm a Green Bay fan. And I said, actually, the only Bengals game I've seen was in Green Bay. And he said, when was that? And I go, about 2017, 18. I was there. And he goes to his phone, pulls out his album, first photo, Brett Favre, The Memory of Right.
Oh, mate.
How good.
That is freakish.
How good's that?
That is crazy.
Yeah, do you hold Lambeau Field as one of the best sporting stadiums you've been to?
I think so, yeah. Fenway Park, that similar sort of feel.
Yeah.
Like just legendary stadiums.
The Green Monster.
And the house parties that are going on Lombardi Drive or whatever it's called, and the legendary figure that is Lombardi as well, and the trophies that he won with the Packers, and you just sense that as well around town. Like you fly in and everyone is just talking about the Packers. Like the cab driver, I went to an Airbnb and you're here to watch the Packers and here to watch the game. Then you're sitting there at the bar because I was there. My mates are at the Jets game getting the sunstroke on a 1 p.m. kickoff in New York, and I'm sitting there in a pub on my own, and they go and they hear the accent and they go, "You came from Australia to watch the Bengals in Green Bay?" That sort of chat, and they want to talk to you and have a chat. So it's great theatre. That was the next slate. I think it was like the
4 p.m. games.
4 p.m. Yeah, that sort of one. So it's cool to watch the early games in the pub, the vibes building, and then you're going to a big game across the way at Lambeau Field. It's pretty awesome.
There's nothing like going to the 4 p.m. game because, like you say, you sit down in a pub and they've got all the screens going. You can slowly walk in the third quarter of everything.
You can get sloshed in the car park.
Oh, you get sloshed.
It's called tailgating.
Well, in Green Bay, the tailgate's incredible because the whole town descends on Lambeau Field. Yeah. And if they hear your accent, I'm sure you would have the same experience as well. People are offering you beers in the car park and everything. And you go up the great hill and overlook the whole stadium. Anyway, just such an incredible experience, such a fan experience.
And that was my first taste of tailgating and seeing it was the first Manning Bowl. I was in the States covering the US Open tennis, and a week later, the Manning Bowl was on, so I set my sights on trying to get a ticket to that. And my mate lives in New York, Nige, and you see that photo there. It looks like we're on a green screen. You're standing high above Giant Stadium, and people probably think it's fake. One of the great photos, just being there and seeing Peyton take on Eli. Now we watch them on Foxtel, covering the game, and that's been a great dynamic to watch them. But they only played each other 3 times, and they were built up as the Manning Bowls each and every time. So to be there at the first one and watching the Colts take care of the Giants in that one, Peyton getting it over little brother Eli, was a pretty special occasion to be at.
The Manning name is a pretty big one, but I can see a few other familiar faces in these photos as well.
Big Joe Buck.
Everyone loves a bit of Joe Buck. And Troy Aikman, I believe, is sitting there by his side, if I can tell that by the back of his head.
Yep.
Well, that is the team, the number one Fox Sports team. So that's a Thursday night game. That's the burden that they took on a few years ago when they got the Thursday night package, and they've still got to back up on a Sunday. So the workload doubles, and you've got to admire what they do. And you can see in that photo there of Joe Buck, I watched the whole game behind him in the commentary box, and I was there about 3 or 4 hours before kickoff as well. So just me and Joe Buck in the commentary box talking about commentary. And he said Aikman actually came up with this grid you can see there because, how many players are on an NFL game day roster at any stage? 53. 53. Yeah. So he's got all 53 slots there, and Buck will turn up and he'll start writing the names in religiously in every sort of slot, and that way filing it away photographic memory-wise. And Buck was the first there, and then Aikman arrives, and Troy says, "Who's this guy?" And Buck says, "He's come to see how us Yankee guys call the sport." And the best dressed man I've ever seen in sports television rocked up later, Mike Pereira. The referee guy was there. And a little insight into what happens, and you'll hear this in the call now that you know what happens, is there's a guy who has a whiteboard, and on every play, after every play, he is writing down how many yards that play was worth. So 18 yards, and as soon as he's doing the measurements and he writes down 18, so Buck will call the play saying, caught by a chase downfield and taken down at the 32-yard line for 18 yards on the play.
Wow, it's like darts.
Yeah, so he's got one guy doing that bit of math for him to just accelerate the process. So that's a little insight at what goes in the comm box.
Sitting there at home and he worked that out quick.
You said as well before that there's a real brotherly connection between Joe Buck and Troy Aikman.
Yeah.
Do you get a chance to experience that?
Well, yeah, like I said, I was there first, just me and Joe, and just chatting about sports commentary and the background, and then Aikman turns up because they're flying in from different parts of the US for all of these games, and when they turn up, it was a big hug. They'd seen each other. Oh, that's right, because Buck had just done the Major League Baseball. So I think he'd been out of the equation with Aikman for maybe, I don't know, a month. So yeah, that was a big hug.
You got to see the reunion.
It was great to see you, calling the Major League World Series again, and he does that so beautifully, Joe Buck. So that was the Thursday night game, and then I jumped on. I think I went back to New York, caught up with a few mates, and then flew down to New Orleans for the Monday night game.
Wow.
Unreal.
Had to catch all of them, obviously.
Yeah.
After that conversation with the two broadcasters, or has there been any point in your career where you thought about making more of a switch to American sports?
I think it'd be tough. I mean, Jared Waitley, who's the star of AFL 360, he's called a few Super Bowls, and his commentary was revered. I mean, it was voted some of the best commentary of the Super Bowl when he called it on radio with the Australian slant and the way that he looks at sports. So it'd be wonderful. But I think, as a football commentator, soccer commentator, an Australian voice going to the Premier League, they're not going to take that. And they've got the English guys doing that. And I think if an Aussie tried to go over and call the NFL and suddenly they'd rock up on Sunday Night Football and you got an Australian telling them about NFL, I don't think it's going to work.
Yeah.
So I don't think it's really a career path for an Australian. I'd love to. Instead, I just sit there on a Monday and watch all the games and listen to the way they do it. I mean, this year's team, the rotation, NBC, Fox and CBS, I think it's fitting that NBC get the call this year, and Collinsworth and Michaels, who are such a good team, and Michelle Tafoya. I say to young female reporters who come into Fox Sports, look at Michelle Tafoya. I mean, she's the best there is.
Yeah, it's her last ever game as well, Michelle Tafoya. Yeah,
what a way to go.
Yeah, finishing now in the Super Bowl.
But that team is just awesome. They get the Sunday Night Football game every week. And you talk about shootouts. It tends to happen. Have you noticed that?
Yeah.
They build it up. They talk about it being a shootout. And sometimes, more often than not, it delivers. It's almost like they say, this is prime time. It's on NBC. It's on Sunday Night Football. We better put on a show. And often they do.
The last Super Bowl shootout, which was Patriots-Eagles, was an NBC game as well. So are we willing this into information? We'll see what happens. Can I ask quickly, we've obviously all seen the famous video of you getting praised by Martin Tyler, who's obviously one of your big idols. Do you see any of these American broadcasters as people you try to idolize or people you try to copy in your own broadcast? People like Joe Buck or Chris Collinsworth or Al Michaels?
Oh, definitely. And Jim Nantz as well as the CBS doyen. I listen to all those guys when I'm sitting there on a Monday morning and watch the way they do it, the style, and they do it so brilliant. I mean, Michael's most famous commentary moment is...
Believe in miracles.
Yeah, Winter Olympics, which is timely at this stage of the year. I mean, he called that big moment when the US pull off the miracle.
It's a great call
on ice.
Yeah. It's all emotion.
Yeah,
great call.
Which is ironic that ultimately some of the best calls of all time, I think, were just pure emotive responses from the commentator. You probably have a few examples of your own.
Oh, I've got a question on that. General fan question. Not counting Riley McGree's scorpion goal, can you pinpoint the most impressive thing you've seen from the commentary box?
Well, Sam Kerr, I was lucky enough to watch her sort of progression, and there was a goal that she scored at Amy Park past the Chinese goalkeeper. Like, the ball is bouncing from a throw-in this way, and she sort of times it and then has to hit it, about this high off the ground, and just goes right through it, puts it in the top corner, and that's when her superstardom sort of rose. I think she brought out the backflip maybe a game or two later, and watching Sam Kerr's progression has been pretty cool.
Because like to be involved in as many sports as you are, it's got to be more than fanfare. You've got to appreciate what humans are doing. Yeah. Right. And
well, that's what I've always said when I got into the sport. Like, I don't want to be the star. I want to make sure these guys are the stars, and being able to watch these superstar athletes perform every week. And I reckon under lights, in front of a full stadium, that's when you see your big moments, because the adrenaline's pumping and these athletes can just produce those big moments. McGree came under lights in Newcastle.
Cahill's first goal for Melbourne. That volley.
Exactly. Yeah. Kerr in front of the Matildas, probably record crowd that night when she produced those heroics. An AFL grand final in front of 100,000 fans. The exploits you see on the sporting field, and I would rather have been there. I'd rather have been good enough to be an athlete who can produce those moments, but you can't. So the next best thing, I suppose, is to get a free ticket and watch it from the Fox Sports commentary box.
Most people in this building are failed athletes, mate.
All.
My Aussie rules coach in under-17s, I was third in the best and fairest, and the the coach, when he presented the award, he turned around and he said, "This award goes to a guy, well, if he could run and kick, he'd be a great footballer."
Now, on that, you obviously have strong knowledge of so many different sports from your own broadcasting, maybe not your own playing career, it sounds like. Where does NFL rank on that list of sports? Is it one of your favourites, and what makes it so special for you in terms of a sporting product?
Well, for us in Australia, we're watching it, from if you're desperate, you get up at 3 o'clock / 5 o'clock on a Monday. I might do that if the Bengals are playing in a game that I think they can win. I might get up that early. Otherwise, I'll just get up when I get up. And to go right through until 1 or 2 in the afternoon with that Sunday night football game, and then the Monday night football game, I reckon it's lost a bit of its pizzazz, the Monday night football game. I think it used to be much more watchable about 4 or 5 years ago. But the Monday morning, a great televisual sport, the comebacks.
It's game designed for comebacks.
Yeah.
Run it when you got a lead. Kill the clock.
Yeah.
And the other team's like, okay.
Yeah. But also the refs, they might find a holding call against the team that's up 14, send it back 10 yards.
Yeah.
It's interesting the way the comebacks do happen, and it drags the viewers in. So it's a very clever ploy, however it unfolds. But I'm always amazed, like you say, let's run the ball, let's run the clock is the cliche when you've just been getting first downs at will by hitting your star wide receivers, and suddenly it becomes too big a risk to throw that pass.
We could have guessed you were an analytics guy just from that. So
and I mean the 2-point conversions and the going for it on 4th and 2
Ravens.
and this sort of stuff.
Yeah, it's crazy that in the playoffs that kind of went away. Teams were taking field goals. They weren't going 4th and 2. And it's just like, where are all your analytics now? Yeah. Why don't they count today?
But how did the Bengals get to the Super Bowl? What happened at the end of the half?
They
Kansas City could have taken a 3, if 3, and the lead would have
14,
blown out.
Exactly.
More than 14, I think.
No, because they were up by 11.
Were they? That's right.
Same margin as the game they lost. That's what I said. They needed to get up 14, so they weren't ahead by 11.
Yeah. And I think Eli Apple made the tackle.
He did, on Tyreek Hill.
Are you a big Eli Apple man?
I'm sensing that.
Coming around. Because I reckon he gets a lot of smack from New York fans for what happened when he got drafted by the Giants all those years ago. And they took him at a high pick. And as you say, becomes a journeyman.
He was okay at the Saints.
Yeah. And if you listen to the commentary, I think there was a New York broadcaster when we won against the Titans, and he absolutely smashed Eli Apple when he got a blown coverage and the touchdown was scored on Eli. And then when Eli Apple got the hand in for the match-turning interception, suddenly Eli Apple's name didn't get mentioned by said commentator. So it's interesting to look at the subtleties of the New York sports fan / commentator.
Absolutely.
I don't know if New York fans are subtle.
Now, gentlemen, we do actually have one more special guest joining us today, live all the way from the United States. It is a very good friend of mine and, importantly, a long-time Washington fan. Dr. Quinn Randall, how are you doing, my friend? It's good to see you.
So good to be here with the boys and to see your smiling faces again.
Hey, Quinny, how you doing, brother?
Pretty good, Teddy. I miss you, buddy.
Yeah, you too, mate. That is some quality thrift shopping you've done there, by the way.
Hey, I had to bring out my Sunday best for the boys. You know?
We appreciate it.
Quinn, you're the first doctor on the show as well, so...
Yeah.
Oh, how good.
No one Google that.
He has a PhD in Washington sporting franchises. Because, my friend, you have been a long-time Washington fan. Exactly how long have you been supporting Washington sports teams, and how long have you been living in the D.C. area to grow up?
From the womb, I've been a Washington supporter. I was born in D.C. I lived there for the first 18 years of my life, and so I've seen many a football team come and go. And nothing has played out for us quite yet, but I'm convinced next year's our year.
And there was the big news this week, the last week, that they had finally decided to change the name. Unfortunately, according to me at least, they're no longer the Washington football team. They are now the Washington Commanders. Firstly, overall, it is an important step in the rebranding process. How important is it to have moved on from the old moniker?
I mean, it's immensely important to have moved on from the original name, which is marked as an offensive slur in every major English dictionary, and to not promote such imagery going forward. That being said, when we originally switched to the Washington football team, was kind of like okay, I guess it's good that we're not the original name anymore. But Commanders, like for real, like we went with Commanders, and like all 8 of the final options were pretty shit. As I happily cuss on Australian media, but Commanders. I'm just blown away by the decision. Honestly, it's pretty awful.
Surely, seeing that you live pretty far on the left, mate, you'd be happy with the abbreviation, the commies.
Somebody brought that up, and I think that's hilarious. And it's a hilarious lack of foresight, bro. How did they not think of that in the boardroom? They had 2 years to think of this, bro.
Yeah,
and they didn't think of the comp.
Washington boardroom usually on the money.
For sure, bro.
Would you yourself have been happier to keep them as the Washington football team, or do you now find a place to stand with the Washington Commanders, mate?
Bro, the Commanders? Come on, bro. Like, absolutely would have stayed with the Washington football team at this point. That's no question.
Man, going forward, is returning to the glory days of the 80s and 90s for Washington football, is that as easy as finding success? Or has the hard times, they've just been so prolonged that you might struggle to get fans back even with a couple of successful seasons?
Man, so this is a good segue into the fact that when Dan Snyder bought the team, they were in the top 10, in fact, maybe even top 5 sports franchises in the entire world in terms of value.
They were massive in the 90s, mate. Huge,
bro. So, and ever since he's had the team, it's been a slow decline and an entirety of lack of winning. And so to return to those glory days, I think that Snyder needs to not be a part of the picture, because all he has done for the team has been bad and done bad things.
Which DC leader is struggling more, mate? Joe Biden or Dan Snyder?
I love the question. Dan Snyder is potentially less sleepy, but both are having their qualms running organizations. Let's just
copping some heat, mate. The boys are copping some heat.
Doctor, can I ask you on Dan Snyder's email list?
When I was younger, when I was a little kid, I was such a big fan that I actually was. And I remember receiving the email that Dan Snyder said he was never, in all caps, going to change the name, the original name.
Oh, wow.
Under any circumstances during his ownership. And as you guys know, it took the major corporate sponsor, the major donor, FedEx, to pull out for him to make that decision.
And then he was like, well, when I said never.
Yeah, well, when there's money on the table, of course.
Yeah, was there a name you might have been hoping for other than the Commanders? Like they were tossing out the Red Wolves, perhaps. Is there something else you would have hoped for other than the Commies?
Absolutely, other than the Commies, the Red Wolves was especially spicy. I would say they said that they couldn't go with the Red Wolves because of copyright issues. But then why throw that in our face and not give us the option in the end? The Red Hogs, I thought, was super sick. Again, didn't go with that one. That pays homage to
the Hogs.
The Hogs, the linemen of the glory days. And that would have been a sick way to honor the team's legacy. It seemed like a lot of the fans were behind that. It's kind of just a goofy name that a lot of people could have rallied behind. All the other ones were all the other finalists, the Armada, the Brigade, the Defenders, Presidents. They were all pretty lame.
Unsurprisingly patriotic and full of liberty for a country that you're from, mate. I'm not shocked to have seen the other finalists in that list. Let's talk a little bit about the other people that you've talked to, other Washington fans. What is the general consensus of this? It was a massive surprise for us here in Australia. Lots of banter and lots of jokes. Have you talked to anyone who is actually excited about this new name?
No, I haven't actually. I haven't spoken to a single person that's actually excited about the name. It's been all jokes here as well. And in fact, one of my friends who's a lifetime Washington football fan has just up and moved to the Eagles at this point because he's just so fed up.
Well, if you are going to be a bad fan, you may as well go to the Eagles.
Yeah, all of the.
For sure.
Why not pick a divisional rival out of all of them?
Yeah,
Yeah.
there's some hate in that.
Did they have a vote, or did the board just decided that was it?
They had a fan vote, but it was. I was reading an article recently, and it was like the fan vote actually had no weight, but they were also trying to say that it wasn't meaningless. So it was like.
But no fans would have voted for Commanders, is what the sentiment I'm hearing.
That's what I mean.
Yeah.
Like the biggest votes, I think, were for the Red Wolves, and I would imagine the Red Hogs would have been a close second, followed by the Washington football team. But all of the patriotic options were just so shit.
All right, Quinn, thank you very much for your time. I do wish the Burgundy and Gold all the best for this season. It's been a pleasure talking to you, and I hope the Commanders do the best they can do. See you, mate.
I love you, boys. Thank you
Thanks,
so
buddy.
much for having me.
Legend.
Thanks, Doc.
Hey, mate.
Gentlemen, I feel like we could sit here and chat football all day. It's been a pleasure to have you on as well, Brenton. But I just wanted to mention that this is actually Hugo's last appearance for the pod this season. And to thank him for all of his efforts in production and organisation, I'm going to give you the opportunity to have the final take of the day heading into Super Bowl, Hugo. Take us into the sunset, mate. The floor is yours. Tell me about the Jets. Jets. How can they turn it all around, mate? Straight down the camera for me, please.
Long story short, I have no idea, but I hope Zach Wilson shows something because he showed something a little bit this year, but I'm still not sure it's coming. Fingers crossed. Fingers crossed. 2032, we'll be back.
Awesome. Thanks a lot, guys.
Yeah.
Cheers, CJ.
Great to be here. Cheers, boys. Who day? Go Bengals.